think this is the death of Heimdall. There. Issue 12. Final issue. Just a little beauty shot there. Hi, I'm Glenn Simpson, and I've collected comics for over 40 years, and I'm showing off my collection one box at a time. Today we're looking at box number 108. We start off with some more Mighty Avengers, some Mighty Captain Marvel, Mighty Mouse, Mighty Thor. We get into Miles Stone, Miles Morales. We get into some, some Mr. E, some Mr. This, Mr. That, Mr. Miracle. So it's going to be a good time. Glad you're here. Let's get started here on Glenn Simpson's Comics. All right, picking up where we left off last time. We've got Mighty Avengers 33. Norman Osborn managed to make himself instrumental in defeating the Skrull invasion, so he gets this high, lofty post in the government, and he creates his own Avengers. And Hank Pym, as now under his new code name of the Wasp, because there's boy wasps too, is at odds with him. 33, 30 through 36. Kind of the siege is kind of the downfall of Norman Osborn's that whole situation I just described, and that is the final issue of this version of Mighty Avengers. Then we have the next volume, Luke Cage putting together a team. So there you go, using a few more people of color in his team. Issue 1 there. Through issue 8, we got these Greg Land covers. Got Adam Brashear, Blue Marvel. This may be the first time we started seeing him again after his original miniseries. I think that might be accurate. There. There's a Ronin gets revealed. So Ronin was an identity that had been used, oh gosh, what was the order of things? Originally by Hawkeye, which is what was alluded to in the Endgame, I believe, but I don't believe it's Hawkeye here. It's somebody else, but I won't spoil it. And that runs through issue 14, which is the final issue of Mighty Avengers. There. And for a while, sorry, something's falling. Get that. For a while there, we had the official title for Captain Marvel was called The Mighty Captain Marvel, so that's why it's here. Issue 0 to start. She has formed a new version of Alpha Flight, which is kind of our first line of defense against outer space baddies, that kind of thing. Issue 5 there. This is all going on during that time when Captain America had been transformed to be an agent of Hydra. Issue 6 there. There's some America Chavez. And that one ends with issue 9. There you go. Alright, then our next mighty thing is Mighty Crusaders. So, this was Archie, the company that's mostly known for, Archie and Betty and Veronica, had a line of superheroes that they would trot out every once in a while, of serious superheroes, and in the 80s, the early 80s, they tried it again, and that was known as the Red Circle Comics Group, kind of a imprint. And the Mighty Crusaders is always the their team up book, where you get them all the characters together. So we've got the Shield and another Shield and Flyman and the Web and the Jaguar and the Comet and the Black Hood and Fly Girl. Yes, Fly Girl. Teaming Up, issue 2. Got to get the rest of these. Got issue 4 there. Fighting all kinds of villains. It's just some good old raw superhero action. Through issue 6. In a special all-shield issue, which would seem to be counter to the whole point of Mighty Crusaders, but okay. So then years later, so DC got the license the first time, and they did the Impact line and created new versions of the characters there, and that line ran for a couple of years, and then it faded away. And then in 2000, but their Crusaders book was just called Crusaders, and so you would have seen that in a previous video. Then they got the characters back again and did a whole run with them and integrated them this time into the main DC universe a bit. And so we have another Mighty Crusaders series coming out of that. Issue 1 through issue 6. Say what you will, some cool superhero action there. Hooded Justice there, or the Hood, I can't remember. And there was a special that went along with that. Go. So when you're talking about mighty heroes, well, you gotta include Mighty Mouse. So Mighty Mouse, of course, was a cartoon character. He'd had comic books for years and years and years as well. He was from the Terry Toons house of cartoons. And Marvel, I think Marvel actually had originally published some Mighty Mouse stuff, but then they lost the license. Then they got it back, and in the 90s, and did this run, and most of the stories are kind of are parodies of other stuff that DC or Marvel was doing. So they've got this Dark Knight parody here. We've got issue 5. We've got the Mices on Infinite Earths. So all of their bazillion characters, all that, whatever they can come up with that Terry Toons had ever done, come out to fight this anti-Minotaur, if I remember correctly. Anti-Minotaur. Issue 6. We've got a Todd McFarlane Spider-Man #1 parody right there. And it ends with issue 10 with Mighty Mouse on Late Night with David Utterman, as opposed to David Letterman for you youngsters. Then that takes us to the Mighty Thor. Thor, of course, usually, even if his book said Thor, Mighty Thor on the cover, it was usually really Thor in the indicia, but this one is actually Mighty Thor. And this is during the period where Asgard, which is essentially a huge island, floating island, gets brought to Earth, and winds up residing above, maybe to escape Galactus. Winds up residing, hovering over a small town in Oklahoma called Broxton, and so we got to see the interaction of the regular folk in Broxton and the Asgardians, and it has one of my favorite things, which is a guy named Bill, whose father was also Bill, falls in love with one of their random Asgardian women, and they keep calling him William, son of William, because that's what he is, and that's the way they talk and how they refer to people. So anyway, that's issue 1 with Silver Surfer. Issue 4 there. Issue 5, we've got a combination of Asgardians, and then some of it's not, straight up regular, like Thor-y kind of Asgardian. Some of it is the various critters that live in that world, teaming up with the citizenry of Broxton to go up against Galactus, because they decide they like the Asgardians and they want to help them out. Issue 9. There, Thor against huge, big critter. There. Issue 10 versus, I think, Tanarak. I think this is the death of Heimdall. There. Jumping around a little bit just because I like to keep these 12.1s out so that we know that we have them, as opposed to inside of a pack. So that's the 12.1. 0.1 issues were special issues. They were a little cheaper, and they were just kind of like samplers for people that weren't normally getting the book. And so we have issue 11 here, which 12.1 would be in there if we were being strict. There. Through issue 16. There. Issue 17. Got Walt Simonson back on at least on the covers. Classic Thor artist doing some covers on new Thor. Issue 22. The final issue of this iteration of Mighty Thor, with all of the Asgardians there. And he had an annual, Mighty Thor Annual 1, which seems to have a lot of the elements of that first storyline. Galactus, Silver Surfer. And we get to the next version, Mighty Thor number 1. So I think, I'm trying to remember, I guess there was a previous Thor series, and that was where we were introduced to Jane Foster as Thor, because there was a mystery as to who it was. But here we're kind of giving it away, so I'm assuming, if I'm remembering correctly, that this was the next series where we already knew, who was, that she had Mjolnir and was transforming into Thor. For those of you who are not, it's basically the situation from the movie, though. Every time she turned into Thor, her chemo for her cancer would get reversed. So Jane Foster was dying while you know, as a result of turning, you know, her becoming Thor. So anyway, that's Mighty Thor number 1 through issue 8. There. Issue 9 with the Executrix, who had originally come from the Marvel Boy series, and was a Marvel Boy, the new Marvel Boy, but she somewhat became more popular than he did, arguably. That's issue 9. Through issue 12. There. Issue 13. Jason Aaron doing all this writing. Through issue 17. Issue 18 is kind of a big boy book for. There's an appearance by what we would call the Phoenix Five, in the Avengers versus X-Men storyline. The Phoenix Force was coming to Earth. Avengers wanted to kind of avert it, make it make it go away. X-Men wanted to kind of welcome it, and it wound up taking residence in 5 different X-Men at one time, dividing up the power, and Quentin Quire happened to be one of them. 18. Issue 19. More Phoenix activity. 23. There. Then we have the legacy story, point where all the books jumped to the point where they would have been if they had never started the numbering over. And for the Mighty Thor, that was very convenient because they had reached what could be called the 700th issue. So there you go, the death of the Mighty Thor, issue 700. #701. Uh-oh. Things went badly for Mjolnir. 701. And that series ends with 706. Of course, what will wind up happening is Jane Foster will not die. She will get brought back to life or whatever, and she will become a Valkyrie. There was a one-shot, the Mighty Thor at the Gates of Valhalla. And then there was, this is actually sort of happening in order. Eventually, Jane got in her new Valkyrie form, got a mini-series, The Mighty Valkyries. That's issue 1. Through issue 5, there was a bit of I seem to recall, there was a bit of a disagreement among death goddesses as to who would be in charge of what. So getting out of Mighty, we get into Miguel. So the 2099 series was a series of books taking place in that year, and projected what the future of the Marvel Universe would be. And it's gone through, there was an original run, and then there have been some times when it was sort of some of the changes that happened there were erased, and it was considered to be maybe a different parallel universe or whatever. So in within the last few years, we've had some more 2099 stuff that is, arguably a different 2099 than the other stuff. But anyway, presumably based on his appearances in the second Spider-Verse movie. Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man, got his own little mini-series here. I think in each issue he encounters a new 2099 hero, so beware the zombie of 2099 right there. And he also encounters the Man-Thing of 2099. They may have all been spooky. I can't remember. There. Don't slide off. Alright, that brings us to Miles. So, I didn't buy a lot of Ultimate Spider-Man when it first came out. I've been getting some trades and some back issues and things like that, so I was not really a Miles Morales follower originally, but just so happened that once he jumped into the 616, as they say, then he became more of a somebody I would follow. So that's kind of where my Miles Morales stuff picks up for the most part. So we have this Miles Morales Spider-Man series, issue 1 right here. There we go. Issue 2. Stan Lee, rest in peace. Issue 4. There, Principal trying to catch him on whatever it is, why Miles keeps disappearing. Issue 5 is a cameo of, what's her name? Starling, who is the granddaughter of the Vulture and a romantic interest of Miles. In issue 5, when he's fighting Tombstone. Issue 6 would presumably be the first full appearance and first cover appearance of Starling. There. Issue 8. There, just a beauty shot. A lot of beauty shots that don't give any clues to remind me what was going on. Issue 12. I know. Okay, so Ultimatum. There was a storyline. So in the Ultimate comics, you had Norman Osborn, who turned into the Green Goblin, but in the Ultimate Universe, it was actually a physical transformation, like the Hulk. When Miles gets displaced and put into the 616, and his universe is integrated, or his history, his background gets integrated into the 616, he still has this hulking green villain, but now he's called Ultimatum, which was actually the name of the storyline that kind of killed off the old Spider-Man, the Peter Parker in the Ultimate Universe. So, kind of reusing the name, an homage to that. 13, Prowler, his uncle, the second Prowler, not the original Prowler. 16. Somewhere in here, his baby sister is born. He's ready to defend her. She's 17. Outlawed. So there had been another incident, as these things happen. An incident where some young heroes screw up and some people almost get hurt, and so this time the whole idea is people under 18 are not allowed to be superheroes, and they are outlawed. And of course Miles would fall into that category, so he has to deal with that. So there you go. And issue 20, we've got the Jackal fighting alongside Captain America. Issue 21. Dealing with, so Ultimatum comes back, and he's got at least a version of the Giant Man that looks like the one from the Ultimate Universe. And 24, we're about to begin a clone saga for Miles. Peter had his clone saga, so everybody gets a clone saga. Issue 25, we are clone saga-ing there. Issue 28, more clone saga, kind of an allusion to Gwen Stacy dying after being thrown off of the bridge there. Alright, issue 29. Got some more clone saga. Fallout. You've actually had two clones. One that was evil, another one that was sort of more physically unstable, but not, you know, not necessarily evil. Easily guided. Issue 36. New costume. I forget what we're doing here. We're doing some event stuff here. 37. We're lost in the Spider-Verse. I hate it when that happens. And then issue 42 is the final issue of this version of Miles Morales, Spider-Man. He has an annual teaming up with Amulet, who is a Ms. Marvel character. This Infinite Destinies thing involved the Infinity Stones, finding new owners, things like that. That brings us to the next Miles Morales series, starting with issue 1. Then we have a couple of Alex Ross Timeless covers here. I did remember to put tags on them just so we don't lose track of where we are. This is issue 4, the variant for 4 with the scorpion on it. And issue 5 of the same type of variant with Electro on it. That tape's not accomplishing anything. Then we've got issue 8, an homage to the first appearance of Hobgoblin, where the Hobgoblin is tearing apart Peter's costume. So this time he's tearing apart Miles's costume. Issue 9, more of the fight with the Hobgoblin. Issue 12, gang war is coming. So various parties who control parts of New York go to war, control the various types of crime. Issue 13, big crossover with the Spider books. 13, Hobgoblin still going on. Issue 16, still fighting the Hobgoblin. Darn that Hobgoblin. Issue 17. There. Through issue 20. There we go. Kind of a day in the life. 21, we get into Blood Hunt. Again, as I was at this video, vampires sort of taking over the world, heroes trying to stop the vampires, and Miles gets bit. His powers kind of keep him from completely turning, but he has to fight the bloodlust, and that will be a part of the storyline for a bit. Issue 21 through 24. The Vulture, not so sure he likes Miles dating his granddaughter. Miles not so sure he's willing to give the Vulture some slack just because he's dating his granddaughter. Issue 25. Black Panther comes along to help Miles deal with his vampire-y powers, out of control, bloodlusty stuff. Gives him a new suit made out of Vibranium, because Vibranium solves everything. G28. To the Panther God. There. 29. Things getting a little hot between Black Panther and Miles. 32. Get into the God War. So Anansi, the spider god, decides that Miles is going to be his avatar. So you get into some god on god action. As we'll see, Ares is, well, that's who that is got an old beef with Anansi and takes it out on Miles. A contest is called. There will be a battle. The battle rages. 36, a variant. We saw this in if you check out my unboxing videos. So this month, J. Scott Campbell basically did a cover for pretty much every Marvel book, and so I got the book cover for pretty much all of the books I normally get. Didn't get anything that I wouldn't normally get. And that catches us almost up. We got issue 37, dealing with a couple of thiefy types. And issue 40, the variant with the street verse, as I mentioned when I did the unboxing for that. This always strikes me as funny. This theme struck me as funny because when I was in my 20s, I was convinced that getting rid of the costumes would be the way to save comics. That was what was keeping people from buying into comics, was that they didn't like the costumes, and if they would just wear kind of distinctive street clothes, that it would solve everything. So the fact that they actually did that kind of thing for the variant covers, I just had to get those. I'm not saying I was right. It was my 20s. Everybody thinks they know everything in their 20s. Annual Miles Morales Annual 1. There. Now I do have picked this up fairly recently. Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man. So this is back in the Ultimate Universe. So just kind of working on picking up more of those. So from Miles, we go to Miles Stone, the imprint, usually of DC, featuring Black and Asian American and that kind of creators of that note and of that type, and characters of that type. It is, of course, where Static comes from, and they had a run in the 90s, and then they recently have brought them back, and they're actually kind of integrated into the DC universe moving forward. So this is a one-shot about, you know, the fact that they were coming back. We had a 30th anniversary special with old school version of Static and newer version of Static. It's a play on, I believe, Flash number 123, where the Jay Garrick Flash, Earth 2 Flash, meets the regular, you know, the Barry Allen Earth 1 Flash. Then we have Milestone Universe, Shadow Cabinet. So the Shadow Cabinet is kind of a team book within the Milestone storylines. This particular one, they stuck Milestone Universe on the front of the title, so that's why it's here. Issue 1 through issue 4 of that. We have a facsimile of Military Comics, which introduced Blackhawk, the pilot with his team of other pilots fighting Nazis. That's what they like to do, fight some Nazis. And Nazi adjacent. Millar-McNiven's Nemesis. So this is actually in the title. So here you go. So series from the same creators as Kick-Ass. And I think the idea is kind of a reverse Batman, where instead of the costume character being the hero, he's the villain, and the police are constantly trying to stop him, something like that. I picked up the one issue. It didn't super inspire me to get the rest yet anyway, but I do have this one, issue 1. Next we have Millennium. So after the Crisis, you had Crisis on Infinite Earths, then you had Legends, and then you had Millennium. Of course, we were in the late 80s, so we were all talking about the 2000s coming. The idea here is a couple of things were going on. The Guardians of the Universe, who are the bosses of the Green Lantern Corps, are going to pick some new Guardians, and they are, for some reason, going to pick them from people on Earth. There are Manhunters, which were the robots that they had originally created before to administer law and justice to the universe, who went out of control. They have infiltrated the Earth, and a lot of series you would find out that some supporting character was actually a Manhunter in disguise. But this was the main series of all that. It ran weekly when it came out. So here we've got issue 1. Joe Staton doing art. Ian Gibson, British artist, participating on inks. Issue 4 right there. See, week 4. There. And we've got week 5. The Zamarons were we knew that they were the sort of sponsors of the Star Sapphire, and a Star Sapphire had been given to Carol Ferris, and Hal Jordan's girlfriend, and she had become Star Sapphire. And what we found out, I think here, maybe we knew this already, but we certainly found out here, is that they are the females of the race that had also originally been the Guardians. So they're coming together as well, no pun intended, to sponsor these new Guardians. Issue 5. through issue 8. So the New Guardians, which, you know, such lofty notion of being, you know, the new Guardians of the universe, and they're basically just about some people with superpowers. And they get their own series, New Guardians. We'll see that, I guess, in a few, you know, after a few more videos. And they lasted for about 12 issues, and then we really kind of never saw them again. I mean, we'll see them every once in a while. They'll throw them into a crowd scene. And one of them is El Extrano, which was a poorly named character apparently, but he was one of the earlier gay characters. So anyway, issue 8 there. We'll talk about this again when we get there. Then we have Minimum Carnage. So Carnage, Venom, Agent Venom. I think this is the Flash Thompson Venom, and the Ant-Man. Can't remember his name, but the guy that was kind of a jerk. They have to deal with Carnage, who's gotten shrunk. And so there was the Alpha, as they did with a lot of these, Alpha, and then the story bounced back and forth between a couple of the books, and then there's an Omega that I don't have the Omega yet. I'm working on that. Then we have Miracle Man. So this was reprints of previously published Miracle Man stories. So it begins with, for those of you who are not familiar with Miracle Man, it begins with actually Captain Marvel, you know, the Shazam Captain Marvel. Back in the 50s, like 40s and 50s, his book was being published. That series ended. Long story there, but they were being reprinted. They had been reprinted in the UK, in England, and they decided that just because they weren't going to get the originals anymore to reprint, they didn't want to just totally lose it. So a guy basically created a total knockoff of Captain Marvel called Marvel Man, and so that continued for a while, and then some Neil Gaiman and some other big creators brought back Marvel Man. So then Miracle Man is the result of that being reprinted, but they didn't want to call when it came to America, they didn't want to call it Marvel Man because Marvel didn't want to get sued by Marvel. So it became Miracle Man, and then eventually it actually came to Marvel, but Marvel kept it Miracle Man. And then there's a whole bunch of drama about the rights being unclear of who owns what. So this is the kind of the dark serious return, mature parental advisory version of Miracle Man that was reprinted, issues 1 through 6. There. We've got Miss America Comics. Back when it was the 70th anniversary, they did these anniversary issues of various series from back in the day, and with one new story and one reprint from back then. So that's the Miss America Comics version of that. We've got Mr. and Mrs. X. So there was a point when we thought Colossus and Kitty Pryde were going to get married, and they pretty much decided not to write on the day of. So it was kind of a Rogue and Gambit were like, well, everybody's here, so they got married, and they had this Mr. and Mrs. X series for a bit. And there are several issues here that are pricey, and I don't know why, other than maybe the recent resurgence of the cartoon. Can't tell you, but people are paying some big bucks for this. So not so much issue 1 though. It's all right. It's just a normal issue. issue 2, the big boy book at the moment. Deadpool appearance. First appearance of Xandra. This was also the first appearance of the child of Charles Xavier and Lilandra, the alien queen. So their child makes her first appearance here. That's 2. Oops. Sorry, I had one. Didn't have this packet. Didn't have the right books on the outside of this. Issue 3, right there. Showing the new parents there. These are all these Terry Dodson covers. Gotta love it. Issue 6. There. X-Men infiltrate their peaceful home. Issue 7, featuring Mojo, presumably, if I remember correctly. Another expensive book. When I say expensive, like, you know, more than 15 bucks. Issue 8, featuring Spiral, originally from the Long Shot series. Issue 9, lots of different rogues. Issue 11, Gambit becomes king of the thieves. Issue 12, final issue, just a little beauty shot there. Next we have Mr. E. Get it? Mr. E. Kind of a classic, little known, I don't think he had a lot of appearances, but a magical mystery character. And then he wound up being put into the Books of Magic miniseries, and he was actually kind of the villain in that. But then he got this 4-issue series. He is blind, but that doesn't stop him from seeking out the truth and magic and stuff. Issue 1 through issue 4. There. Then our next thing would be Mr. Miracle. Now, as I mentioned in previous videos, sometimes when things get expensive, I cheat. So the earliest issues of Mr. Miracle can be found in a couple of trade paperbacks. One of them is Jack Kirby's Fourth World, featuring Mr. Miracle, which reprints, I don't know, like issues 1 through 6 or something. The first few. This is the wrap up. Wait, my bad. Okay, so between the two of these, I don't remember which one comes first. Maybe it's supposed to be that. Anyway, 2 trades collecting the classic Jack Kirby Mr. Miracle series. And then they picked up the series again in the 70s with different creators. And that's where, you know, the original issues become less pricey. So that's with issue number 19. So that must have been, 1 through 18 in the trades. So we got issue 19, Marshall Rogers artwork. through 20, that would be 21. There. Issue 22. Got a gun. Got a zappy gun. Issue 25. That ends the classic series. Then in the late 80s, he gets another series. Mr. Miracle had been appearing in Justice League International, Justice League, Justice League America, that series. And so they extended that to a solo series by J.M. DeMatteis and Ian Gibson. And there you go. It's all about trying to balance having a normal home life, American home life, with being, new gods and Justice League members and all that. So issue 1 through issue 4. Issue 5. Through issue 8. Beetle, Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, Big Barda. Issue 9. Issue 12. This is all, they picked this. Joe Phillips was doing the artwork on these. I met Joe Phillips at an Atlanta fantasy fair before he was doing this. He was just a guy with a booth. I was always like, oh wow, that guy that I met. I got a sketch from somewhere. 13, Lobo. Early Lobo. Lynn Wein coming on to right through issue 20. And that is all for this box. Okay, so that was box 108. Next time we'll do 109. We'll finish up the Mr. Miracle and some other misters. We will do some random things, and then we will get into Moon, which will most prominently be Moon Knight. So a lot of Moon Knight next time. So if that's your bag, you want to be here, please like and comment and subscribe to this channel. Really helps. And until then, have a great day.